Hi everyone, welcome back. So today's 2MC is a little bit different than things we've done in the past. It's a real life kind of professional responsibility in the news type thing where it has to do with a zoo in Denmark in Europe and a zookeeper's request to an employee. And so this sparked international controversy, so we just kind of want to work through it and see how you guys kind of go through and reach your conclusions with this situation.
So going into more specifics about what happened in this situation. A young employee was given instructions from his manager to inject and instinctively kill this baby giraffe. The instructions were based on the fact that the zoo is becoming overpopulated with the giraffe population, and that this new baby giraffe wouldn't have room there.
So this is obviously a very controversial, it seems like a very black and white, what's right and what's wrong, killing an innocent animal that, the zoo might not have room for, or, not killing it and being a good person and, not doing that. So we're going to kind of walk through the framework and we're going to discuss kind of the different sides, even though if it's not your personal side in the story, just kind of the different situations that are going on. So let's start with here's our giraffe for inspiration. So let's start with what are the issues in this situation, the overriding issues, whether it's for killing the giraffe or for not killing it. Anyone have any suggestions for that?
Sure, I think one of the issues is this kind of sets a precedent in the zoo community as to how you deal with populations. If you decide that the population is getting too big, is it acceptable to kill the baby giraffe because the population is getting too big? Is that a valid reason for killing the giraffe?
Right, definitely. Do you have anything, Vivian?
I don't have anything else to add.
I guess one more thing we can add here is that the population, according to the manager, is getting too much for the zoo to handle. So we have to figure out a way to solve that issue.
So maybe another issue could be, are there other zoos in the community that could have taken the giraffe instead of asking to have the giraffe euthanized instead?
So obviously this zoo cannot handle the giraffe at this time, seeking out other people to, kind of shift it to their zoo and have it be, I'm sure, that want a giraffe.
Right. Well, right now we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We'll get to the questions in a minute. Let's take a step back and look at what rules apply here.
Is it ethical to kill a baby giraffe? That's completely healthy.
That's a huge rule. It's just ethics. What is personally good versus bad of taking a life and how that kind of plays out. Any other
Anything
rules?
else?
Are there any maybe there's legal rules that have to be followed that zoos say they're going to follow when they have animals like this in the profession?
Right, just even an animal protection type act that protects something like this of this nature.
Well, to play a little devil's advocate again, maybe there's rules for the zoo to protect the other giraffes. Maybe the zoo doesn't have enough funding to feed this new baby giraffe, and so they have to get rid of it somehow. And maybe other zoos don't want it. So you have to think about all the stakeholders here, not just the giraffe.
So jumping down a little bit to what type of questions would you have in this situation? What would you want to learn more about from any of the stakeholders that would be affected?
One of the questions that I would ask is, was there any other zoos that wanted to take care of this giraffe?
Yes, and actually, that's funny that you bring that up, that in the article, it's stated that zoos were bidding on this baby giraffe and were offering 500,000 euro for it. And so it was in demand in the zookeeper market, and this zoo just went ahead and decided to try to euthanize it. So that was actually a question that other people had asked in the past.
Another question I would have would be, for me personally, if I am the person being asked to euthanize the giraffe, what is the consequence for me if I choose not to euthanize it? And then if I do euthanize it, is there another consequence, like a legal consequence that would happen because of my action that would result from my action?
Right. Well, we do know the direct consequence, and that would be you were fired from your job. So you would be fired from your job, but would there be something at a legal standpoint is your question, yeah.
So I guess moving then, what resources do we have to answer those questions?
Well, we probably have a zoo code of conduct that we could follow. So I don't know how often this happens in zoos, but perhaps it's happened before at the zoo or at zoos nearby. There could be something in the code of conduct that you could reference to discussing how to go about euthanizing animals.
Or this could happen all the time and just not get public attention. So that's definitely a resource to consult. And any other resources that you think that would provide any help in this situation?
What resources were you looking to, Vivian?
I was thinking if the giraffe were to be placed in a different zoo, how would the zoo take care of it? Would that zoo also have similar issues of killing off other animals when their capacity is full?
Okay, so referencing other zoos and see what they would do in this situation.
So who all is affected in this whole situation?
A lot of people. Myself, I would be affected. The zookeeper, my supervisor would be affected. The giraffe population would be affected. I think an overarching thing, though, that would stem from the euthanization of the giraffe is how do the people that visit the zoo look at this? Will they look at the zoo differently? Will they say, oh, you euthanized the baby giraffe that was completely healthy? Are we going to continue to spend money and come visit that zoo? That's something that I think the zoo administration needs to look at.
Right, definitely. It could have the effect of deterring members coming to the zoo and just audiences in general, just saying that they don't support this and take their money elsewhere. Any other people?
At the other end of that, though, the zoo did get global attention from this. So now many more people know about the zoo and its name.
But did they get good global attention or did they get negative global attention?
All press is good press.
All right, so moving on. What are your options then? What can you do? What can you not do? As your spot in the employee that's asked to euthanize this giraffe.
One of the options is to reject the manager's request and see if that will not do it because it goes against my personal values.
Another option is to actually euthanize the giraffe.
Let's start thinking out of the box here. What other options do we have?
Is there any alternatives that you could, help out even as an employee at a zoo? Reach out to your resources, like we said, and kind of utilize those to come up with a third or fourth option that might involve none of those things.
I think since we talk about personal scripts all the time in Business 101, we could potentially use a personal script to talk to our manager to buy us time to go ahead and then take more time to talk with our resources and other people that would be familiar with the situation. And we could use that time to go ahead and find another solution to the problem, like moving the giraffe to another zoo in Denmark or another zoo halfway across the world instead of euthanizing the giraffe.
Right, yes, I definitely think this would be a great instance to use a personal script. And I think that that's a great alternative to the situation, and buy yourself time and kind of take a step back, realize everything that's at stake here. Obviously your job's at stake, but it's your whole, your peace of mind at stake as well. If you were to go ahead and do something like this, obviously it would affect you personally and on a personal level. So I think that definitely buying some time would not hurt, even escalating it above your management to see, is this right or is this wrong, and just kind of get all the facts straight.
So, in the end, what do you guys choose to do?
I would not kill the giraffe and ask my manager to, if he insists on doing so, to ask someone else to do it because I just don't want to.
But I'm your manager, and I hired you specifically so you could help out with the giraffes. And part of helping out with the giraffes is taking care of the population problems.
I'm sorry that I could not fulfill that part of the requirement. I will definitely come up with another possible solution to this. Perhaps I could help you with finding someone else who would be capable of doing that.
Each day, this new baby giraffe costs us hundreds and hundreds of dollars. We don't have that kind of money. We need to get rid of this giraffe now.
There are other zoos that have been bidding for this giraffe. Perhaps we could just send this giraffe to another zoo.
But that zoo's not taking the initiative to pay for the cost to come get the giraffe.
Perhaps I could contact them and work this part out.
Okay. We'll definitely think about doing that. As of right now, though, you haven't convinced me yet. Maybe in the future. I'll give you a couple hours to figure something out and see what happens.
Alright, thank you.
So that was a great, well played, using personal scripts and even attempting to buy yourself time. And it seemed that in the end he was kind of shutting down your request, but then he gave you a couple hours in the end. So I think that was a great use of personal scripts, and speaking your mind, really standing to what you believe in and what your values are, and then him just drilling you nonstop. So that was a great way to kind of alleviate the pressure there.
And what's your choice, Brandon?
I would choose the same thing that Vivian chose, and I would not euthanize the giraffe.
What's wrong with euthanizing a giraffe? I mean, think about it. Every day, we all eat meat. That's pigs, cows, chickens, that are killed every day. Thousands of them. So what's one giraffe?
I think there's a big difference in that and euthanizing this giraffe because you don't have room for it, when other zoos do have room for this giraffe. And I think it'd be better for the giraffe itself as well as my values to stick to my values and go ahead and not euthanize the giraffe. And if you're going to fire me because of that, then I'm okay.
Well, I guess I can't do anything else right now except fire you. So thank you for working here, Brandon, but I'm going to have to let you go.
Great job sticking up for your values and what's right to you and what's not. So just kind of to wrap up this 2MC, the actual decision was that the employee of the zoo did choose to euthanize this giraffe, and that's part of the reason why it gained public controversy. Everyone was very against this decision, and the way that they did it was in front of a crowd at the zoo. So it's kind of a disturbing ending to the story, and I really wish that the employee had kind of a decision-making framework in his head to go through this, or tried to buy time, use a personal script, but if his job was the one thing he wanted in the end, he kept it. So that was the ending to this story, and that's why it made national news. But good job working through it and coming to your own decisions and working through the framework.
So looking at a couple key takeaways that we have here, personal responsibility can sometimes, as you've seen in this situation, become a little bizarre. So it's important to always try and realize when it is that you're supposed to be using your values to answer your questions, no matter what situation you're in.
It's also really important to understand all the stakeholders that go into the situation. Brandon mentioned that there are a bunch of stakeholders affected by this 2MC specifically, and kind of put yourself in their shoes and see how they see it from their perspective can really help you and guide you to a clear decision in the end.
And just remember that one day you may be able to save a giraffe's life too.
Thank you, and thanks for a great discussion.